This is a KOAT Action 7 News Commitment 2026 Republican Gubernatorial Primary Debate.
Good evening, I'm Doug Fernandez. Welcome to our debate between three Republicans looking for the chance to run for New Mexico's next governor. Alphabetically, they are Greg Hull, Rio Rancho's longest serving mayor, Duke Rodriguez, businessman and former Secretary of the State Human Services Department, and Doug Turner, a small business owner and board chair for the Public Charter Schools of New Mexico. Journalists with Partners for Impact will ask our questions. They are KOAT Action 7 News anchor Darlene Melendez, Capitol reporter for the Albuquerque Journal Dan Boyd, and morning host and News Radio KKOB Bob Clark. Each candidate will have an uninterrupted 30 seconds for an opening statement. For each question, each will have 1 minute to answer. And as moderator, I have the discretion to grant candidates 30 seconds for rebuttals. And we'll end with giving each candidate another uninterrupted 30 seconds for closing statements. Volunteers from the League of Women Voters are keeping track of time. Now, we held a series of drawings with the campaigns which determined their podium positions as well as the speaking order for opening and closing statements. And for our questions, we start opening statements with Greg Hull.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Greg Hull. I'm the longest serving mayor of the city of Rio Rancho, former business owner. I'm a father of 5, grandfather of 9. Moved to New Mexico in 1986 and have enjoyed raising my family here that entire time, and looking forward to talking about the issues today.
Next is Doug Turner.
I'm Doug Turner. I'm a small businessman from Albuquerque. Built a company here that works in over 40 countries around the world. I'm a single father of 3, and I am running for governor this year really for one reason: my kids, your kids, and the future of our entire state. When it comes to business, crime, and education, I believe we are far behind, and this campaign is going to show that we can do so much better for our state.
And our final opening statement is from Duke Rodriguez.
I'm Duke, and I'm here today to talk about what matters here in New Mexico. First of all, New Mexico is not a poor state. We are absolutely a run state, and hopefully in the next 30 minutes or so, we can talk about the issues that matter to you. Crime, how it impacts us every day. Healthcare. And we all realize how difficult it is to get an appointment. And of course, the most important category is the whole issue around the economy and affordability.
Our first question tonight is from KOAT News anchor Darlene Melendez. Darlene.
Thank you first off to all of the candidates for joining us today. What is the biggest issue facing our state, and what would you do to fix it?
Mr. Rodriguez, you go first.
I think that's pretty easy. The biggest single issue has to do at this point is crime. And the reason why it's crime at this point is because it impacts every other area. When we deal with crime, we talk about fixing poverty. We talk about fixing a failing education system. We talk about dealing with mental health. We talk about dealing with addiction. All those issues collide, which make crime terrible. But keep in mind, to have a real reduction in crime means fixing the economy in New Mexico today.
Mayor Hull, you're next.
Yes, I would have to say that education is at the very top of the list, and crime gets right up there with it. We don't have educated students, crime continues to go on the rise. Education feeds into our workforce. Education feeds into growing the pipeline of workers that we need to create opportunity in New Mexico. So everything rises and falls on education. If we're not educating our kids, we are failing them. And so I have to say that that would be the top priority.
And Mr. Turner.
So I'm going to agree with Greg. Education is a key priority. It all starts with how we raise and treat our children. That starts in public schools. Today, 47% of our third graders can't read at third grade level. We graduate kids through our school system, and yet they leave public schools without the skills that people can use to hire them. But we also have to look at organizations like CYFD. A 6-year-old just died yesterday in the state. That'll make it 15 or 16 kids that have lost their lives under the custody of CYFD, and this is an organization that we must fix. We have been failing our children in this state for 30 years, and that has to end now.
All right, our next question is from Dan Boyd at the Albuquerque Journal. Dan.
Good evening. State lawmakers enshrined a universal child care program in state law during this year's legislative session. Would you seek to make any changes to the program if elected?
Mr. Hull, you go first.
Well, We'd have to evaluate the program very carefully. One of the things that I have a concern with is the sustainability of the program. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the resources to continue doing it? I want to make sure that the most needy in our communities are served and that they have the opportunity to have high quality daycare. But that being said, we have to look at the sustainability when it comes to the affordability in our budget and the resources statewide in order to support a program like this.
Doug Turner, you're next.
So the legislature passed this into law legally, and I think there are a lot of people who agree with it, and certainly the people in this state that need those services the most deserve those services. The issue that I've had with this program, during the discussion and implementation is that I do think there needs to be some means testing that goes along with it. An extremely wealthy person shouldn't have the state paying for their child care. And I think as we look at how we support a program like this, the most money possible needs to go to those with the greatest need. And I think that's how it needs to be reevaluated. And I do think that will impact costs downrange, likely decrease them. But largely I support this program as long as we have means testing.
And Mr. Rodriguez, you are last.
I clearly am the individual who sued the governor over the current program. Keep in mind, I 100% support child care assistance programs. But what didn't happen with this bill that we have to do with anything that has to be done with child care, not just universal child care, but a program that takes into account work. Is it there to support parents working? Is it there to let mothers stay at home and take care of their children? Is it there about the issue of affordability? Is it to put money back in programs or put it back into families to raise their children? And there's the issue about child development. Do we want better outcomes? It's not enough to just simply say universal child care. It has to be a program that is lawful, that is legal and sustainable. All in, this is a $4 billion decision, bigger than SNAP, bigger than Medicaid.
And our next question is from Bob Clark at News Radio KKOB. Bob.
Well, as we all know, our state has been and continues to be at or near the bottom of all of the rankings when it comes to K through 12 public education. What will you do as governor to ensure more of our children start receiving a high quality education?
Mr. Turner, you are first.
So this is an issue that has been extremely important to me for more than 20 years. I have been a lifelong advocate for school choice. I worked during the Johnson administration on early days of charter school implementation, and I have been a leader in the charter school movement for most of my career. I think we need more school choice in the state. We have rules that limit replication of high quality charter schools, and I think that needs to change. I think we need to hold back kids who can't read at third grade. Mississippi, which was our biggest competitor for years, they used to be 49, we were 50. We'd high five ourselves when we got to 49, is now 15 or 16 in the nation because they hold the line on kids being able to get out of third grade, reading at a third grade level. And finally, we have to deal with truancy. We have to hold parents responsible, we need to engage law enforcement, and we need to make sure that kids who are supposed to be in school get out of school. Our job is to move them through the system and make sure when they get out of high school,
Time is up. Mr.
they can
Turner,
get a
thank
job.
you. Mr. Rodriguez, you're next.
We need to be very truthful about education. We spend enough. Our student population is not growing. We were 305,000 students 25 years ago. We're 305,000 students today. 25 years ago, we spent $2.5 billion. Now we spend over $4 billion. We have the money. We need to have the results. Let teachers teach. Go back to the basics. Provide students in those classrooms that are controlled. Let the teachers have the protection to do their jobs. We stopped focusing on making sure our education system was successful. And keep in mind, no matter what, we cannot fix education without having a vibrant population, not on dependency, but a vibrant population with jobs so that those students can see a future in their life. I think the future looks great in New Mexico. I think our failures in education can be resolved with a resolution to get it done once and for all right. Let teachers teach.
And Mr. Hull.
Well, first off, we need to model after the school districts that are working. In Rio Rancho, we've got an amazing school district up there, and they're accomplishing some great things. And so we want to take those school districts and make sure that we're working with them, learning from them, and taking those and those successes and applying them across the state, really on a district by district basis. But we do have to stop the one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to public education. Each of our communities are different in character and culture, so I believe that we need to widen the guardrails and allow local districts to have more control. I am big on accountability, and accountability starts at the home. And so we have to hold parents accountable when it comes to truancy and making sure that these kids are getting into the school so that they can get the education that we are paying for. I agree that we are spending a lot of money on education. We need to make sure that we're getting our value for what we're spending. And so accountability is the key, making sure that we're getting every child educated.
And Darlene Melendez from KOAT has our next question.
Well, recently the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against CYFD, an agency that's been plagued with issues, including a revolving door of leadership. So what would your plan be to fix CYFD and protect New Mexico's children?
Mr. Rodriguez, you go first.
We've been under an order within CYFD for years, a case related in the past, which has tied the hands of CYFD. The first thing I will do as governor is to get that issue resolved, no longer be held hostage, and allow our CYFD folks to do their job. Think about it. We are a state with great resources. We don't do a good job of prioritizing our children. I keep talking about applying common sense. Never should a child be sleeping in a CYFD office. It basically goes back to leadership. We've had a revolving door in CYFD, 7 secretaries in the last 10 years. That's not leadership. As governor, I will prioritize the well-being of our children, that it comes first and foremost. I love the idea of fixing our problems, and number one goal is to fix CYFD.
Mr. Hall, you are next.
Thank you. Kids come first, and I absolutely agree. The report that came out from the Attorney General's office was appalling at how CYFD was being managed. And so first thing we do is get a leader that is certified in all of these areas to make sure that we have the best leadership possible running that organization. Second off, we have accountability and peel back the curtain on what's going on there and make sure that from the Attorney General's office we fully utilize the Office of Child Advocacy to make sure that there is an independent audit and review of everything that's happening in CYFD constantly, because kids have to be protected. We cannot allow children to be dying in the state's custody when what we're trying to do is protect them. And then we need to take a more robust approach to developing a pipeline of foster families so that these kids are not sleeping in the offices, but they have a safe home to go to, and transparency with those foster families has to be critical, and it's key.
Mr. Turner, you're last.
So first, I'm actually pretty shocked that it took this long for our AG to come up with a report to say that our treatment of CYFD is a moral failure. This is an agency that has been failing for 30 years. This isn't new. And how many kids do we have to see dying on the front page of the Albuquerque Journal or even on this station in stories before we wake up and realize that this has been a moral failure for a very, very long time? So I think there's a few things that we need to change. One, I think there is a culture within CYFD that does not respect transparency. We have a habit of kicking the can, or it's a hot potato. Someone has to be responsible, and in my administration, the governor will be responsible. I believe in micromanaging this until it's fixed. Number two, we have a shortage of social workers. We have a shortage of resources that go in to caring for these kids. And number three, we have to get rid of our policy of reunification. We keep kids bumping around from family to family, and it's just not right.
All right, Dan Boyd from the Albuquerque Journal, you have our next question.
Juvenile crime continues to impact communities statewide. What is your plan to fix the issue, and how does it fit into your overall plan to make our communities safer?
Greg Hall, you go first.
Well, first off, we need to reevaluate the entire child code, because that has not been updated in many, many, many years. And we are seeing a huge uptick in juvenile crime, and in Rio Rancho, we have not been immune from it. So working with the legislature to come up with common sense laws around how we deal with juvenile crime has to be a top priority for any administration. I think this is another place where we're failing our kids. We've got to have systems in place that help with intervention. We have to have systems in place that help with rehabilitation. We have to have systems in place that hold these kids accountable, because these kids are not doing kid things anymore. They're doing very adult crimes. And as long as they're doing adult crimes, we need to have a code that holds them accountable for that. We also need to start looking at holding parents accountable when they're not having oversight in their kids' lives, to make sure that there is that oversight necessary to hold everybody accountable.
Mr. Turner, you are next.
So kids are not born as criminals.
Right.
You know, they are socialized, or they are product of their environments. I think some of this comes down to necessary fixes within our education system. You know, I think our pre-K program is great, and giving kids and parents the tools early on to make sure their kids get a good education. I think fixing issues like CYFD and the broken homes and the difficult environments that many of these kids come from is a key component to managing, you know, what's going on in juvenile crime. But certainly kids have to be held accountable. And I think we heard yesterday or the day before that we were on our sort of 16th kid violence, you know, murder conducted by a child in this county. There are solutions. There are resources for intervention, resources for mental health, and resources to keep these kids out of trouble. But it starts young.
And Mr. Rodriguez.
I served before as the chairman of the Juvenile Parole Board, and I witnessed firsthand. Our goal was simply to take 40 kids, release them, and bring 40 kids in. There is an absolute revolving door. But I want to talk about how to finally fix juvenile justice and adult crime. We have to put it in proper perspective. Stop looking at it as just a siloed activity. Keep in mind, if you want to deal with crime, we have to deal with poverty. We need an economy that is vibrant, that offers opportunities and jobs. We need to address a failing education system. It is not enough to say our kids are bad. We have to have an education system where our teachers are supported and our education's better. We also have to finally deal with the reality that crime emerges from the failure in mental health. We have to have a mental health system that is robust. And finally, we have to deal with addiction. None of these issues by themselves, but collectively: poverty, education, mental health, and addiction. We fix those and crime will decrease.
Thank you. Bob Clark from KKOB, you have our next question.
What's your plan for tax reform in New Mexico, and how far would you be willing to go with it as it relates to state income taxes, gross receipts taxes, or even potential oil and gas revenue rebates?
Doug Turner, you are first.
So this is an issue I've been talking about since I got into this race. New Mexico is the highest tax state in our region. We have a 6% personal income tax. Colorado's 3%, Arizona's 2.5%, Texas is 0%. You know, at the very least, we need to work to have parity so we could be competitive with our surrounding states, say 3%. I think that's something that can happen over a number of years, but I think it's a reasonable target. I also think that, you know, our gross receipts tax are the most regressive tax that we can have, that we have in our system. I think over a period of years, we ought to be eliminating gross receipts tax. It's complicated because it adversely impacts small communities. But, you know, recently we were ranked one of the eighth highest tax burden state in the United States. If our goal is to attract new businesses, to promote small business growth, we must address our onerous tax system. I haven't found one person throughout the state who tells me, please raise our taxes. There is everyone
Time
wants
is up.
lower taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, you're next.
I've been very adamant about how far I'll go with taxes. And hear me clearly, please. I hope this is very clear. Number one, eliminate state personal income tax. Be like Texas, be like Nevada. I didn't say reduce it. I said eliminate state personal income tax. No more filing that tax return, no more obligation. Number two, eliminate New Mexico gross receipts tax on all retail sales. We had the courage to do it on groceries, but it should be on everything else. When a mother, when a father goes to the store, buys a dress, buys pencils or diapers, eliminate New Mexico gross receipts tax on all retail sales. And number three, what I've heard throughout the state is the issue with property tax. Reduce the state's portion of property tax. It is silly. We need to simply fix our tax code, put the money back into taxpayers' families' pockets, and eliminate those taxes immediately.
Greg Hull, you are next.
Thank you. Well, first off, I do believe that personal income tax in the state needs to be eliminated. That's going to make sure that we're competitive with the states around us. I think there's a lot of reforms that we need to look at that point as well, especially around property tax. We have yield control on private property. I think that we need to look at yield control on commercial properties because right now commercial properties can be subject to tax lightning, and that's just an unpredictable environment, and it makes New Mexico unfriendly. Again, another reason why we can't recruit businesses into the state. And then as far as the gross receipts tax, we definitely need to look at how we can reform that, turn that into a pure sales tax if possible, or look at different ways that we could reduce that or eliminate it in some cases. But the reality is that you have to make sure that you do not adversely impact the communities that depend on some of those revenues. And if you do that, you can literally bankrupt a community very fast. So we want to make sure that whatever tax reforms we do take.
Time is up. Thank you. KOAT anchor Darlene Melendez has our next question. Darlene.
The governor recently signed the Immigration Safety Act, shutting down contracts with ICE facilities. Two parts here. Do you support her plan? And also, do you have a plan to work with the federal government on border issues?
Mr. Rodriguez, you go first.
You know, it really disturbs me that we would take away the ability for these counties to create these facilities and provide compassionate care. It seems so silly that if all of a sudden we think it's not being done elsewhere, that automatically translates that we're going to fail in this state. I absolutely disagree with her taking the right and the privilege for these counties to create a model of excellence versus claiming that they're going to fail at being good humans. Give them the opportunity to do what's right. Do I think we should protect our borders? Absolutely. Do I think we should cooperate to make sure the safest border to stop criminals from coming into this country? I don't believe obviously in fentanyl. I believe we should protect our citizens every way possible. But the fact is, one size doesn't fit all. We do the best we can for our people, and we cooperate where necessary, and we do it in a compassionate, civil manner.
And Mayor Hull, you are next.
Yes, well, I do not agree with the shutdown of these facilities. I think that it sends a message that we're not willing to hold people accountable. But when it comes to working with the federal government on border issues, I think that New Mexico has to work with every agency possible. Every federal agency, every state agency, our surrounding states, whether it's Texas, Colorado, Arizona, working with each of these agencies to make sure that our top priority is keeping New Mexicans safe. Public safety is a top concern. When I'm moving around New Mexico, talking to people, people don't feel safe in their communities. People don't feel safe in New Mexico. And so working with every agency we can to make sure that we optimize that public safety for our citizens is a top priority, and I am committed to working with every agency to achieve that.
And Doug Turner.
So I think the issue is, can ICE use county facilities? And I think, ICE is going to use facilities somewhere. And what I've heard around the state is, this effort has significant economic challenges to a lot of small communities who have facilities that do contract with ICE to put criminals in. So they're going to go somewhere, and they might as well go to our state, and they might as well promote economic growth in those communities. Do I think we ought to cooperate with federal law enforcement? Absolutely. The state and the governor have a responsibility to work with whoever is in office, Democrat or Republican, at the national level, to do what's in the best interest of New Mexico and New Mexico citizens. And if that involves interdiction, drug interdiction, border security, or any other area, it is our responsibility to make sure that happens.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next question comes from the Albuquerque Journal's Dan Boyd.
What is your position on the future of the State Fair and Expo New Mexico?
Greg Hull, you are first.
Well, I think the State Fair, right where it's at, it's a tradition. It has been there since as long as I can remember. And I think the State Fair needs to stay right where it's at because it is part of the identity of New Mexico. It is part of the identity of Albuquerque. And it attracts a lot of business. It attracts, it's a great place to go when you want to hang out with your family, and it's just wonderful entertainment. So I think we need to look at ways that we can preserve that here in Albuquerque, because I'd hate to see it move off into some outer location around the community where it would be hard to get to it, or we'd have to spend a whole lot of additional dollars to put the infrastructure in to support a new facility. So I very much would support trying to see what we could do to keep it right where it's at, but I don't know that decisions haven't been made already that would stop that.
Doug Turner, you are next.
So, I went to a Stevie Ray Vaughan concert 40 years ago at Tingley Coliseum, and I think then it was 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
I think the state fair is awesome. My kids love to go, but it is difficult to get into now. So, I mean, I actually think the best use and the best thing that the state can do with that real estate, is to redevelop it and, find appropriate uses, whether it's, for a reasonably sized stadium for New Mexico United or other uses, or housing. I mean, we're 32,000 housing units short, in this state. But the real estate itself needs to be used to the best interest of the taxpayer and the best interest of the user. So if the state fair were moved to another part of the community, out to the west side or elsewhere, it'll improve access, we'll have a brand new facility, and I think it's better for consumers.
And Mr. Rodriguez.
On the state fairgrounds issue, I love the state fair. I've been to it too many times to count. But it's also an area I don't think we have to make that decision right here today. It's an issue worth considering, weighing whether we move it to the west side, whether we move it out to a certain county. I think all those things are valuable. What I don't like, and this is a perfect example, every time we have a challenge, we quickly either want to abandon the efforts we've made so far or try to paint a new picture of something faster, cheaper, better. That doesn't always work. With the state fairgrounds, I hope this administration will basically stop and realize your time is over. Hand it over to the new administration, and let's have a commitment that will last not just the next 6 months, not just press releases or media alerts. Let's have a system that works. Let's deal with state fair. Let's talk to the stakeholders, and let's make the right final decision.
Gentlemen, thank you. It is now time to give each of you 30 seconds for a closing statement. As a result of our drawing, Doug Turner, you go first.
Thank you for having me today. I got into this race because I believe that we are missing balance in state government. New Mexicans want leaders who are willing to work with both sides of the aisle to get things done. And we have uncontrovertible facts in this state. Our education system is failing, our crime is out of control, and our tax system needs to be redone. Everybody in this state agrees with it. I'm committed as governor to work with both sides to solve these problems for the betterment of this state. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're next.
I've been a businessman in the state for a very long time. My message is very simple, and I'll say it again. New Mexico is not a poor state. We are absolutely a poorly run state. It is time that we realize we are rich in resources, but we rarely demand results. I am committed to fixing what ails this state. I am excited. This has probably been the greatest adventure, and I look forward to being your next governor.
And Mr. Hull.
Experience matters. And I've had experience running the third largest city in the state for the last 12 years. We've accomplished some amazing things in education, in infrastructure, and public safety. Now we want to take these solutions to a state level and help communities across the state be safe, have great infrastructure, great education systems, and I know that we can do that by working together. My name is Greg Hull. I'm running for governor. Thank you for your time.
And that concludes our debate. Thank you to the candidates for participating. Now, early voting starts May 5th, and for the first time, we have semi-open primaries. If you're registered in a party such as Republican or Democrat, you can only vote in your party's primary or change your party before early voting begins. If you are registered with a minor party such as Libertarian or Green, you must register with a major party or update your registration to Independent or decline a party affiliation, which can be done through same-day voter registration at the polls. If you are registered independent or declined to state, you can select either ballot and vote without changing your registration. Election day for the primary, as you know, is June 2nd. The winners of the Republican and Democrat primaries will face former Las Cruces Mayor Ken Miyagishima, who is running as an independent. That's in the general election, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. Now, you'll be able to watch tonight's debate at KOAT.com, our app, and on the free Very Local app. And in both our app and website, you'll also be able to jump straight to the topic that matters to you most and get the responses you want to hear. We are also preparing everything you need to know for this election. To scan the QR code on your screen to be taken to our voter guide. There you'll be finding polling locations, candidate information, and links to request an absentee ballot. I'm Doug Fernandez. Thank you for watching. Good Good night, New Mexico.